been running independent alternative events for over 20 years. Join me and my guests as we share stories and insights into our times working in the unpredictable world of producing events. My guest today has been a very active figure in the Perth punk scene for a long time. Plus, a politically outspoken person hosting Indy Media on RTRFM for 18 years. He's also a founder of Yardstock, the live music festival hosted in backyards, and now he's gigging everywhere with his Wham-approved band, Last Quokka. Hey, Ray Grenfell, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, Ivan, thanks very much for having me. I didn't know I needed Wham approval, but I'm glad that I've got it.
Well, I'll officially give it to you now.
Oh, thanks, yeah. Is there a ceremony?
I'm sure I saw a photo of you holding a trophy or something.
Actually, an old band, Black Box, was the only band that ever won an award through Wham.
Oh, I thought you won something.
Oh, we got nominated for Last Quokka.
Oh, you got nominated.
Well, stolen. The whole thing was rigged. Dennis Cometti took it from us.
Oh, the bastard.
Classic fucking stitch up.
The bastard. So, Ray, this is a good opportunity to catch up like this after all this time. We've known each other for ages.
We have known each other for a long time.
Yeah. I want to say we met through the art scene, bakery, art rage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Bit of film stuff, music stuff.
Oh, yeah, film, yeah. I think I got you involved in a film gig when I screened that a narco-punk documentary about Crass and
No
all
Authority
those.
But Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great film.
There is another version of that. There was, someone else made a kind of badder version, but No Authority But Yourself is a great. And I remember I was at the Velvet Lounge where I used to do that kind of thing quite often.
Awesome gig that you put on there. I remember that well.
And it's a great doco about that anarcho-punk subculture. We're going to break this up into some milestones. So let's talk about your early influences, but let's start from where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
I'm originally from the country. I'm from Gracetown, down south, near Margaret River.
Gracetown?
Gracetown, Coromant Bay. Lived down there when I was a little kid, and then moved up to Fremantle, and then kind of, pretty much got stuck in the Shire ever since. Went to Richmond Primary, went to South Freo High. Good working class public schools.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still have a very strong connection to the Southwest. When my dad was still alive, he was still down in Margaret River. I used to go down there a lot to visit him. But outside of that, I've been mostly around Freo, kicking around Freo and the city. And, did a few years outside of WA. But aside from that, I'm very, very much wedded, it seems, to the fucking port city.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing. I tried to move there, and
it just didn't let you in.
Didn't let me in, man. I thought I had all the cred. Still got some yards to go.
Yeah.
No, Freo's cool.
It is. It's an interesting place. It's definitely a lot more gentrified these days than when I was growing up there. It always makes me laugh whenever you see the social media posts of all the kind of sea changers complaining about so-called antisocial behaviour in Fremantle. And I think, fuck, you should have seen it in the 90s.
I know.
I don't even know. It was a hectic fucking place.
Yeah, dude, I remember going in the early 90s to a party, and that's where I first came across ferals.
Probably some of my friends. Yeah.
Oh, well, but this was hardcore.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we were, but my girlfriend and I at the time, we got a little bit dressed up,
Yeah.
And we got to this house, and it was just like a huge old house, And we walked in, and we were not dressed for the occasion, that's for sure. But, it was really bordering on sort of cave people sort of shit, But the funny thing was there was drumming involved. This is the first time I saw this sort of, this culture.
The drum circles, yeah.
But once you got through the house, the yard was so vast. and there was a teepee and a little fire, and it got really tribal, and so they started banging drums and that kind of stuff, you know. And then my girlfriend and I, you know, in our good clothes, are standing there. And I think I was the only person with a mobile phone at the time, and it rang during the ritual. And it sort of
like instant hatred.
No, everyone just stopped and looked at me, and I felt like I was in a movie. You know, that I just found this civilization.
Wow.
I think it might have been old school Mosman Park.
Yeah.
Right. But I'd never forgotten it, and I kind of felt like you know, holding my phone out and going, you know, don't come any closer. and then we ran away. But
hilarious. It's funny the predisposition towards bloody banging on a djembe that a lot of those guys get. I really don't get it. I don't know whether it's one of those things of if you're not at all musical and the djembe is just the easiest thing, and if you're a bit stoned and you can start like smashing away or something. I've never understood it. It's the thing I always feel like it was a love-hate relationship with like the hippies of Fremantle, the ferals of Fremantle, because probably a lot of people look at me outside of, you know, playing punk music and so forth, and they think, oh, he's just a Freo hippie. But I grew up with this real disdain. Like, even both my parents, you know, they were conservationists. My dad was a, you know, big wave surfer and whatever, but they hated hippies as well.
Right,
This is kind of, and people, I think, are always confused when I say that. Oh, it's not hatred. Hatred's maybe a bit extreme, but I'm just like,
no, I don't think it's a hatred
useless
thing.
Pricks that wear all the shit, talk all the shit. And
you're talking about, like, we could say stereotypes, I suppose.
Yeah, but
cliches.
But unfortunately, they kind of fit the stereotype. You know, after you know, so many years living in Fremantle, there is a stereotype. You know,
but there's the stereotypes everywhere.
Oh, of course.
I mean, you know, there's a complete contrast if you go to Joondalup.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, totally. And you know, there's some good people. You know, some of my good friends have been.
That was just a funny experience.
Yeah, no, totally.
But it was. I think back, and in hindsight, pardon me, I'm like, well, yeah, this is a completely different demographic who's like this side of the river.
Yeah.
I grew up on north side of the river.
Yeah.
So going south was, you know, not that often. But
it's great for like that whole I was actually talking to a friend who was over Laura McFarlane, who's you know, very well known Melbourne musician. She was over in Perth a little while ago, and we went to a house party in Freo, and she was just saying how, like, because she's originally from Perth, and she was saying how, like, you know, Perth and Fremantle in particular, like, the house party is such a huge part of it. The backyard party, you just don't get that in Melbourne. You don't get that in Sydney. You know, like, the yards are like fucking 10% of the size, but there's that real culture of it. You know, that's where I, you know, probably played all my first gigs were in backyards, and saw all probably my favorite bands. I've probably all seen them all in backyards, and these, like, you know, pretty much the scenes you're describing, you know, with like teepees and so forth in the backyard. But it's something I think we maybe take for granted in Perth. I always presumed it happened everywhere in Australia, at least, but it doesn't. No, it's like it's a real a real thing that, you know, and maybe that's to do with venues and so forth. And I guess we might talk about that later if we talk about things like yardstock. But there's it's a real thing, and it's really cool. I love that. I mean, even when I was a teenager, I was just thinking as you were talking about, used to go to the guys from Kildare Hills had a house near the Freo Monument, and they used to have fucking wild parties there, and it was just awesome. Like, I remember being like, you know, 19, 20 and going to those parties and just being like, this is just like so much better than going to a pub. This is like the craziest, wildest shit that's happening.
Freo has always had that community vibe, and the parties, like, I went to my fair share when I could back in the day and that, but they're always great. I think I even went to a breakfast gig once. Kind of had a date, and she lived out there, and there was and it was great though. I was like, I'll play at a breakfast gig, you know. So yeah, Fremantle's alternative, pretty much, compared to, you know. Well, it was like extremely alternative in the 80s, and it was also controversial. Who was it? The National Front was trying to set up there.
We had the A&M, Jack Van Tongeren. You know, he was sort of largely based there. I mean, they were blowing up Chinese restaurants all around the city. But I was actually thinking just the other day. I remember years and years ago we were talking a bit about gigs and parties, and I I remember you telling me, I'm sure it was you telling me a story about more around here, like Mount Lawley, because this is more the punk scene around here, up here, right? And some of the houses, some of the squats, amazingly to think that Perth actually even had squats. And then I've got other friends, probably mutual friends of ours that played in bands sort of more in the 80s and early 90s that have told similar stories. But I remember you telling me a story about like house parties where you'd have bands in different rooms and you'd move through. I'm sure you're telling me a story where you move through and you have like a band in a lounge room and someone in the bathroom and then someone out the back or something. And these really, and whether
I
it's
remember
a squad
going to things like that. I hung out, as I said, north of the river.
Yeah.
And in the 80s, like Subiaco wasn't what it is today.
Yeah.
And we squatted in a house in Subiaco, and we befriended the girls from the orphanage down the road in Subi, and we just run amok in this house,
The girls from the orphanage.
Yeah. But then, like, another hangout was the old trade station.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, the pavilion was still there, and then across the road was the car park markets. Yeah. And in the grass, that's where all the goths hung out. There was this grass area.
Goths in the Grass.
Goths in the Grass.
Sounds a good album name, isn't it?
Or a festival.
Yeah, festival Goths in the Grass. Forget Splendor in the Grass, it's Goths in the Grass.
But
sit around smoking cigarettes and talking about Marilyn Manson.
Yeah. Anyway, So I squatted in this house with some friends, and we got up to no good.
It's funny because the only time me and my mates, talking sort of maybe 20 years ago, attempted to squat anywhere was also in Subiaco.
It happened there was also West Leederville and parts of Leederville, and so I got to know this demographic of people that squatted, and I knew this chick. Did you ever go to that house in Juro Place in West Perth? And I think there was a punk band living there called the Pink Fluffy Bunnies.
Right. I don't think so. No, it doesn't. Yeah,
well,
might have been a bit before me. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, we're going back enough that Freo and Perth were pretty separate places, So, but anyway, there was this house, and they sold weed and all sorts. But every fad, hippies, punks, all sorts of people just lived there and hung out there, and they would have these politically active events in their backyards, and the punk band would play, and that kind of thing. So I got immersed in that culture.
Very, very different from the West Leederville and Subiaco of today. As I was saying, it's strange because, like I said, about 20 years ago, me and some friends decided to try and squat a house in Subiaco. And it seemed really bizarre. It sounds like it's very, very similar to the house near the orphanage, because it was maybe a bit closer to this football stadium, perhaps. But it was really strange. They had some other people in the house next door, and it was just like in this really bougie area. Because by that, by the early 2000s, Subi was definitely starting to well and truly become gentrified. Probably had been for a good decade. But it's weird because it was just, we almost did it as a joke, just thinking, can you get away with squatting in Subiaco? And we did until the I think it was the toilet exploded, and we had to get in plumbers, and then that notified the owners.
That's the only problem with squatting, is that
suddenly you have to get anything official happening, and then the owners find out, and they turn up and there's shit all down the street.
But I think when I was involved in that scene, I remember this particular house owner being okay with it, because they weren't exactly rentable. Yeah. They weren't considered rentable, but now they fucking rent worse shit than that.
Oh, now. Totally. But I mean, ironically now, the housing crisis is worse, and the homelessness in WA is at all-time high, right? Yeah. And there's still vacant houses.
But there's still vacant houses.
There's still vacant houses.
They're not letting anyone squat in them.
Yeah. It's
live
weird.
in them.
There's not, I guess there isn't as much of a culture here of it, maybe a bit more over east, and obviously outside of Australia of squatting. And I don't know, Perth's a strange place.
The thing is
very, very big on private property in Perth. You know?
But squatting is like it's desperation for some. It's like I've come to this stage in my life when I need to squat now to survive. I
mean, it is and it is. I mean, that's it's a going back to my love-hate relationship with sort of the hippie types. I remember there was because you get political squatters that I think are useful. And I remember there was a house up on Charles Street, going back to the early 2000s, that was squatted in a political capacity, and they set up a bit of a social space there. And there was a bunch of sort of enviro kids, predominantly kind of middle class Western suburbs kids that had been radicalized through uni or whatever, and they set up a space there. And that was kind of funny though, because they set up their space and they had a political space, and then at some point they all decided to go traveling or do whatever you do when you're of that inclination and that age, and they just sort of left this place. But because we'd had the Black Dove house around the same time up in West Perth, and we donated a whole bunch of stuff to them because we were just renting and got kicked out. And me and an old mate of mine, Nathan, had to go back and get all this stuff out of the squat that they'd basically abandoned. It was kind of funny because they'd set this like really kind of feminist, inclusive, radical space up, and then they'd all sort of fucked off to go traveling. And me and Nathan turned up to get like our whiteboard and our projector and stuff back from this place, and it just turned into a crack den. And it was the most like we walked into the back, and it was just like. It's like, it's one of those, you have moments in your life where you feel like you're in a film. You walk in the back and there's some like older guys there with a lot younger girls, and it's just like sort of smoke through the entire atmosphere, and you're just like, oh my god, we've just come for a whiteboard, like, these guys are looking at us like they're gonna cut our throats, and we're just like, all right, we're just gonna slowly walk through the massive bodies
with your whiteboard,
grab the whiteboard, and like, oh, thanks very much, guys, just pretend never come back to this house ever again,
Yes.
The what is left after a bunch of well-meaning
But no, in regards to music, I suppose, Freo's rootsy, it's very roots friendly kind of.
Wasn't much of a punk scene back then.
No.
Was it? No.
Yeah, and Perth has always been that sort of punk alternative side of the river, I got involved with the folk scene when I had my band Squash Water. I built a band around my banjo. I decided to play banjo one day, and of course I, put a band together. But
not that solo banjo can't work,
No, exactly. Yeah.
If you can sing and play the banjo, it's great.
Totally.
Yeah.
But anyway, it gave me an opportunity to venture out to Fremantle a lot more than usual. Did some gigs north of the river, but it was mainly better received, and also the roots genre is broad. It's kind of it embraces everybody sort of thing, where punk and alternative music are quite a specific demographic. That kind of thing. So
I've always found that hard, the genres. I mean, I really sort of cut my teeth playing in bands with Alan Boyd, who we became friends actually initially through Indy Media and activism, and we we had a bunch of bands. A lot of them were sort of lounge room bands at the time, but they're all very sort of punky. I think the first few.
What was the first band you joined?
Technically, I was actually I joined the very first band I joined was with Vomit.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I was probably one of the 50 or 60 members of Dead Babies and Vomit for a period of time until I was just like, I was very young and I didn't really enjoy being in that whole scene. I won't go into the specifics of it. If people know who Vomit is, they probably know the scene I'm talking about.
And he was definitely a visitor at the squats I used to hang
out. I just couldn't. I couldn't handle that. But look,
it was Perth's worst punk.
Yeah. Pretty much. It was a pretty wild, when you're 17, 18, you join a band like that and you turn up to a rehearsal and there's about 20 people passed out in the lounge room. It's definitely an interesting insight into that. But that was technically my first band. But then I think I really got properly stuck in with when I started playing with Al, and I think the first band we started was with Tonya and Al and a few other people was Waiting for Broken Trains with Richie as well, Richard Eames, who through the filmmaking stuff.
Rich.
And that kind of was really my intro, and I think I was really lucky actually. I was very young still then, and I was really lucky to play with some people that were just really good, decent people. I mean, the music, definitely I hardly knew how to play bass at the time, and the others were much better, but it wasn't really the most musically complex band. It was a very thrashy punk band with poetry and Tonya's great words and stuff. But just to actually have a great introduction like that with a bunch of people who are really doing it for the love of it and the community of it, and they weren't assholes. They weren't, they were just really decent people. I was really lucky with that, and played with in bands of Our then for the next decade, really, because then we went on to sort of the more prominent of those bands was Black Blocs.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Black Blocs was cool.
Yeah, and that was the most kind of like, not that you can measure things by success, but it was the band that played lots of pub gigs and supported bands and did all that kind of thing, and that was really cool, and that lasted for quite a while. That came out of the Black Dove Social Centre as well. That was I briefly mentioned before. We were jamming there, so yeah, it was really cool. And a lot of those guys are a bit older than me as well. You know, they were sort of 5-10 years older than me. And it was really cool to play in these bands of people that had sort of already had the experience and were just decent people, and you know, and I kind of just learned to play bass through playing in bands. Through started out shit.
DIY.
Very much, yeah. And I started out shit, and I think I'm still probably a little bit shit, but I'm definitely, you can't do something for 20 years and be totally shit.
Just always remember that Paul McCartney can't read music.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just had a memory I wanted to share about growing up on this side of the river during the 80s and I'm a 70s kid, so the Hay Street Mall, when they had the Carillion Arcade and all that. Well, in the Hay Street Mall are where all the sort of fads and gangs hung out in their groups, and the punks always used to hang out at that outside the Carillion where that little arcade goes down. The underground arcade.
Yeah.
That's where the punks hung out.
Right.
And I used to be fascinated by them because they'd have coloured mohawks, and they'd be like classic punks, And I just used to walk past going, what the fuck is that all about? But then later, I was, exposed to punk music.
Yeah.
And I took to it straight away. Because, I don't know, maybe I was... I was frustrated. But I think, punk is working class music, It
is,
I resonated with Joe Strummer straight away and The Clash, Pistols, all that kind of stuff, The Damned and that. But they're like the stepping stones, aren't they, really?
Yeah, totally.
And then you sort of branch out. And in the, after the sort of punk explosion in the 70s, punk evolved. And then you had like anarcho-punk, who were like seriously politically active and socially active, like Crass. And then punk sort of started fusing with metal, late 80s, and you had Danzig and things like that, But it's always been a sort of anti-authoritarian kind of vibe,
And it's not so much about the sound, I think. I was recently rewatching that great documentary, The Decline of Western Civilization, about punk in the 70s in LA, or late 70s.
Yeah, I think that's part one.
Part one, right, yeah. And then it goes on, there's a couple other parts. I've
got part two.
Right. I've only ever seen
metal years.
Yeah, right. See, I've only ever watched the part one. I guess that's because, I love Black Flag.
Sure.
And,
great.
Germs and Circle Jerks and stuff. They'll kind of... For me, not my introduction to punk, but that's like when I went back, I was like, wow, these guys were already doing it back then,
I bypassed, like, musically, I bypassed bands like the Germs and Black Flag, because, I don't know, I need a hook.
Right, yeah. It's very abrasive. I mean, even now when I listen to it, like, I love Black Flag.
Yeah,
but I love them more of the idea of them. I can't really put on a record. Because I'm much more like, I love the sort of the 90s DC scene, like Fugazi, Minor Threat, Fire Party.
Yeah,
that's because and that's how I like to play. I like stuff that's
Black Flag was pretty much experimental,
right?
Really,
and then they're an energy band.
You go there to let off steam. Like mosh.
Right,
like
and you're not going there to listen to the hooks,
No, exactly, yeah.
But like and I think particularly once Rollins took over, it's just so much energy that he brings, and it's funny because I feel like punk's like it's the politics, and all that, but it's so much about the energy, and I love energy music. That's what, like, for me, I like fast music. I don't care what it is, if it's a dance music or whether it's punk. I just like fast music, and I've always liked fast music.
Yeah, the pace of punk is great. I love it. I can still whack on Dead Kennedys now, and Big A, Little A, from Crass will get me up and run.
Totally,
I was a Crass head,
yeah,
like for a while. when I was a kid, my best friend, he was English. Well, his family were English, and his cousin came over from England. And, I was into the Pistols and the Clash and that kind of thing. And he would call them peacock bands.
Right.
Because of
because of the
fashion,
mohawks.
mohawks. And he's like, nah, lends me a record and it's crass. And it's like music I've never heard, and it's also poetry, and it's also... But it's also DIY
and authentic, right? Like it's authentic. That's
they manufactured the whole thing themselves, and I love that they used to put on the sides, "Don't pay any more than £3 for this product."
Yeah, different to Crass, but that's one of the other things I always loved about Ian MacKaye and Discord and Fugazi is Fugazi never charged more than $5 for a show.
Yeah,
there's stories about how you'd go to a Fugazi show and you'd have to wait they'd always be running half an hour late because they'd literally be sitting on the door taking the money. And even when they're playing to thousands of people, they'd be still running their own door, or their mates would be doing it. And, you'd have to wait half an hour for them to get up on stage because they did everything themselves.
Yeah.
And that was a huge influence on me because I just thought, well, there's so much bullshit when it comes to... There's so much bullshit when it comes to the music industry, like it's just so much ego, there's so much money, there's so much, even just the idea of how you think a band should progress, it's really hard to snap out of that idea. But if you create something that's authentic and because the whole purpose of doing it yourself outside of the political sort of the context of it, I think it's just you actually build genuine relationships. If you're not paying someone to do something for you, if it's just you there selling your record to someone, or talking to them at a show or whatever it might be, or doing your own sound or whatever, it's just human connection, isn't it? It's not like this whole artifice that's mediating between you and the people that have come to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So punk was big for me, and I go through stages with music, and now I'm back into punk, and I'm loving it. And I think this sort of Aussie pub rock thing that's happening at the moment with the Chats and Amyl and the Sniffers.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous of those bands. I'm so jealous.
Oh man, tell me about it.
But good on them, man.
Yeah.
Good on them, and all power to you, man. And I love that the Chats recently released a single called "Get Fucked," and they're just the photos them up against the wall with their fingers up, And I'm like, good on you, fellas. Just keep it simple and effective.
I love that stuff as well because it's kind of reclaiming a bit of an Australian narrative. I think there's
absolutely
there's this idea that Australia has always been a conservative, nationalistic country, and I just don't think that's true. I think that we've got such a rich history of that sort of that working class mentality of like screw you and your authority and like that. I that's what I see because I don't think of like the Chats or Amyl and Sniffers or Coffin or some of those other bands as particularly political.
No,
but their authentic sort of self
they are.
Is political in the sense that it's like we're not going to conform to this idea of whatever, and you can argue maybe that that they're sort of they're inadvertently creating a kind of bloody brand under capitalism in of itself, but
whatever.
But but the fact is they're just being themselves, and they're just talking about real shit that affects them, and there's heaps of other bands. I really like another one, Bad Dreams. I think they're really like that as well. Just people who. They sound how they want to sound, and they're just so earnestly just themselves that it's just that for me. That's a kind of Australian spirit that I think is really really
I agree.
Worth promoting.
And the level of larrikinism.
Yeah,
that's something. I grew up in a larrikin town, with larrikins, and as much as they would frustrate me, I learnt to laugh.
Yeah.
Laugh along, because larrikins approach everything as a joke.
Yeah, and it's just about this thing of not looking up to anyone and not looking down to anyone. It's interesting.
Equal level.
Yeah. I mean, I just as a sort of anecdote, I remember I was living in Melbourne for a time, running a social centre, and trying to Melbourne's like it's a very guess what do you call it? You know, with good intentions, but quite a politically correct kind of scene. And we were sort of living in the inner north, running this warehouse, having gigs and free English classes for refugees and soup kitchens and stuff, and doing, trying to do the best we could, but surrounded by a lot of people that basically talked a lot of shit and didn't really do much. Some really good people as well, some amazing people, but you know what I'm talking about. So, but from that, I got sick of that, and we moved down to rural Tasmania, and it was like, going from one end of the political spectrum in Australia to the other, in a sense. But, and you're surrounded by these kind of rednecks and greennecks, down in rural
Greennecks.
Yeah, rednecks who like trees. But it was really weird because it was sort of, in some ways, there was this level, like, of course, there was all this kind of casual racism and sexism and all that sort of bullshit. But there was this real genuine sort of side to people where I was living as well. I mean, granted, I was living with some really, some friends who were really, much more sort of politically left and so forth. But then just even people in the local community, there was some real like genuine people, and it was a weird because I moved down there with an old friend, Marcus, who helps me with yardstock, and he's a person of colour, and it was just really interesting seeing his sort of experience in that, because we'd come from Melbourne where we're, it was very much like that, everyone's treading on eggshells, not to say the wrong thing, and then you move to Tassie and they don't even give a shit about any of that, but the level of like, it's just peculiar, you have these people that probably voted One Nation, and yet they fucking loved Marcus and would, buy him a beer and be like, oh, he's such a genuine, like it's this weird thing where, people,
the priorities don't connect.
No, and it's just, but it just shows how complicated it is that, like
Absolutely.
It's not, you can't just sort of say, well, this person's this or this person's that, and it's like, well, someone, may have been raised in a very conservative, reactionary environment and been brought up with all these stupid views, but on their personal level, they're still a really decent person, and they might vote for One Nation or vote for the Liberals or something, but when it comes down to interacting or dealing with someone who's a person of colour or queer or a refugee or Indigenous, they're just authentically themselves. But then they might fucking tell racist jokes down at the pub. Like it's a weird, complicated thing, and that doesn't excuse them, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't pull them up for that. But it's sort of, it was a really eye-opening experience, because it's like, well, actually, I kind of prefer hanging out with these guys that probably had very divergent politics to me than all the bloody sort of trustafarians in Melbourne who talked a lot of shit and then just sat around. Honest. There's something, and that that arcs back to that what we're talking about with those bands, that there's this sort of this honesty there.
There's a pure honesty. When I bought the Chats record and read the words, and there's songs of frustration of living in poverty.
Yeah,
and they've fucking drag themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And now they're touring the world playing music, and they're building their brand and their career. And as the marketing for that album is just so basic. It's just stick figures. But this is the thing, it's like people might look at that and go, oh, it's dumb. It's actually genius, because if you can do the least amount to achieve the most, you've reached your objective,
And it ties in the fact, I think people are just sick of all not everyone, but a lot of people are sick of all the glam and all the overproduced crap,
music's gone soft, I've seen the sort of the change in music with your competing radio station over the years, and it's not provocative, know. We're not promoting provocative music, or it's all kind of just really nice. And but you can find provocative music. You can find punk and everything. I'm a big Bandcamp dude. I've been using Bandcamp for many years. I've got all my music on there, and I find great punk bands on there. But anything I want, really,
There's heaps of stuff out there.
But as far as the mainstream goes, it's gotten soft.
I remember an interesting perspective on that. I remember years and years ago I was interviewing Aussie battler from The Herd, the Australian hip-hop, quite political hip-hop group. Yeah. I was interviewing him and I was asking him about his, because at that time I was around, when all this sort of stuff was happening with Napster and illegal downloading, and that was a big thing before we had streaming services or anything. And I was asking him what his opinion on that was, because he's a very, very left-wing guy. I kind of presume they wouldn't care if people illegally download their music. And he said, look, I don't care about the copyright infringement or whatever. I don't care. I want people listening to our music. He's like, if you think about it just in terms of the audio fidelity and quality, we've gone from things like records where there is really great dynamic range, and then CDs where, again, great dynamic range. But then when you start getting down to MP3s, things start to get compressed. And he said, he had this sort of, it wasn't a conspiratorial, but this sort of theory that the more people listen to MP3s, the more they get used to overly compressed music.
Oh, of course.
And they can't go back and listen to vinyls and CDs. Oh. And then now, everything you hear is just so, like the loudness wars, as some engineers call it. Everything's so loud, so compressed, no dynamic range. You listen to the latest Kendrick Lamar record or something, it's just so compressed. Well, there's not room for
absolutely.
And you got a whole generation of people now, that are coming up that they've grown up on that. Well, they've just grown up listening to MP3s, not knowing about audio fidelity, not knowing that you have to actually listen sometimes. You listen to old Led Zepp record, right? And you got some parts, the dynamic range is huge, absolutely huge.
That you raise a really good point, and now we have a culture of people constantly wearing earbuds, and so music is now mixed for digital earbuds. I'm not,
or just on their phones. A lot of people we've had that. We do the label stock records and. When I've talked to people about that, they're like, you got to make, when you're mastering stuff or we're releasing stuff, it's got to sound good out of a phone. And it's just because people will just that's when they'll decide whether they're going to download it or not. They'll have a quick listen on their phone, and this tiny little shitty speaker on their phone, it's it's sort of in line with the whole culture that we just want things immediately and instantly, and rather than putting the effort into actually go put the record on the turntable, sit down, listen to
Engage is the word that I use. When we're talking about digital music, I actually don't mind listening to digital music with headphones or earbuds because it's mastered for that. But listening to music on your phone while it's sort of just sitting around and it has that high temp. It sounds like shit.
Yeah, totally.
That's what grinds my gears about people. I love music. I listen to music all the time. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It seems like a bit of a throwaway thing, where I suppose if you compare it to back in the day, if you put a tape on or a record on, you did for a purpose to listen to.
There was an intention to it. There was a sort of not just scrolling through Instagram and clicking play on a little. And that's it frustrates me, especially because we're doing with the little sort of own DIY record label. I know there's heaps of labels out there that just don't even bother engaging with it, and they're just happy to sell records to their community. But it's a hard thing to engage with, because especially if the sort of music that you're releasing or the music you're playing isn't geared around that, you've got no luck really, or no hope of at all, competing with people that the entire music is geared around that. But I don't know, that it is what it is, right? And that's what you got to deal with. It's it's the same. It's
pros and cons.
You can dislike it, but you still have to. At the end of the day, that's most people are still going to go along to their Instagram or their Facebook to check out your band or your podcast or whatever.
Look, the upside is that it's more accessible. You can reach more people now. You can customize your advertising and all that kind of stuff. I do that all the time, and. You compare it, before Facebook, we were on our feet putting posters up and hassling people out, for flyers and stuff like that.
I was just said to a friend yesterday, because I've been thinking about taking Yardstock totally offline, and I said, I used to just go to so many shows, partly to watch the bands, but also just to hand out flyers for my gigs. That's what you do. Because you had a gig coming up, you go to 3 or 4 shows that week because you want to hand out flyers.
You got to hustle.
Yeah, totally. You can't just put up a bloody Facebook event and forget about it.
No. Let's talk about Yardstock. So it's I went to the last one.
Yep.
And it was packed.
Yeah. Well, that's hence that's why I was having that conversation the other day, saying about having to take it offline entirely.
It was packed. It was a little bit scary actually, because I was standing there and my shoulder to shoulder, and I'm like, no, I got to get out of here. This is too much. But apart from that, like the house before was fine.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's a great gig, and it does, it encompasses. It's well, actually, you know what? It's the closest thing to the big DAO we've got now. So congratulations.
Wow.
Unintentionally have taken over from the big DAO.
I don't know whether that's a depressing thing or a good thing.
I was there for 9 years.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's it is that kind of culture, But I've been following it since the beginnings, its humble beginnings, and it has evolved. And it's from my perspective, it's an accepted community event, and there's now there's very little trouble. I remember one of the first ones he put on in North Perth.
Mm-hmm.
And cops turned up.
Yeah, it was a notorious.
And I was like, slipped out of there. I was like, fuck that.
Yeah, that yardstock was just cursed.
I think I remember writing to you and going, dude, you gotta let the cops know.
Yeah, that was a terrible one. That was the one where it was just everything kind of went wrong. Like it started out, I was living in a house in Northbridge at the time, and I was living next to the local bikie club, basically in Northbridge there, and I tried to tell them that it was happening, and but I hadn't really obviously gotten through to them. It was actually, we did it there, and it was the last day of I was moving out on the Monday. It happened on the Saturday, and so it was like last weekend of my lease or whatever, and the whole house was empty, and we had it. And I remember I think it was the Painkillers were playing.
Oh yeah.
James and Joe were playing, and suddenly this white van, it was kind of comical, it was like this white van with 10 very, very large men rocked up and piled out of the van.
Wow.
It was only the second house, it was a good crowd, because in those days,
Sure.
that was only the second proper yardstocks. In those days, we used to put all the address online, so, it was hundreds of people.
Yes.
Because we didn't realise how ridiculously popular it would get. So it's hundreds of people. These guys rocked up, face tattoos, the whole, usual sort of look. I was doing sound, and my friend Alex Wisson came up to me, and literally sort of white as a ghost. And he's like, "Oh, well, Raymond, there's a gentleman here to see." And there was this little, sort of sergeant at arms, attack dog in my living room. But the whole thing was just bizarre, because my entire house was empty, and there's just this quite aggressive guy there pacing up and down as I walked in the room. And I went up, and he sort of came up to me a centimetre away, being like, "What the fuck's going on here?" Blah blah. Because people were going down their laneway and pissing in their laneway and stuff, because my house backed onto the clubhouse, and I could
behavior.
and I could understand them, and I was sort of tried to calm them down. I was like, look, we're only, because the thing about yardstock is it only ever really lasts about 2 hours at each venue, so it's really designed to be not as disruptive, as least amount of disruption as possible to neighbours in the local community. But he's going off at me, and right up in my face, and I said to him at some point, I said, "Look, mate, like, this is the last day of my lease, I'm not even going to be here anymore." And he's like, "Mate, if you don't shut this down right now, it's not just going to be the last day of your lease." And at that point, I just kind of laughed, because wow. You're going to kill me over a house party, right? So at that point, I was like, "Oh man, like, whatever, right? You're not going to kill me for a house party." And I said, "Look, do you want some beers?" And he's like, "What do you got?" So he just gave him like 15 bottles of homebrew, and they were happy. We took the bribe. I love it. It was just an instant de-escalation where he gave him terrible homebrew as well. But yeah, that sort of yardstock was cursed. And after that, he had the cops later at one of the last yards.
But I also remember one of your early posters was the premier at the time. I think he had something in his mouth or something.
Oh yeah. It was pretty. Yeah,
what's his name?
Barnett. And actually, that was one of the reasons for that getting shut down, is that we stupidly put it on the weekend after they introduced the out of control party laws. Remember that? There was that famous kid on the news. that dickhead. Yeah, so they so that literally
that.
that was like, so that's why they shut it down. So the cops came and shut down. But then so that was the second one. That was the only ones that have been shut down.
Yeah,
only time we've ever had any issue, and I think they just accepted it now. To be honest, I think even the cops and the councils and everything, they know what it's about, and they just.
But obviously, did you eventually just reach out to the authorities?
No, never spoken outside of individually. I've never spoken to the cops about it.
Oh, really?
And it's weird. I think they just kind of get it now. I mean, I remember a few years ago now we had one back up this way, and there was a bit of issue because we started it all at the Vinyl Cafe there. And
I remember that one.
Yeah, and there's a bit of issue with some of the neighbours there, and a bit of back and forth with one of the local councillors. And her exact words was that she said, this local councillor there, who was sort of dealing with it and was quite supportive, and she said, look, even an old biddy like me knows what yardstock is.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, cool. So
wow.
I think that just, the word's gotten out, and I think even, like, you couldn't, I always say this to my friends, I'm like, it's not much more I can do outside of trying to limit the numbers in terms of a festival with that many people and that many bands impacting on neighbours. We couldn't really limit it much more. I mean, it starts at 12 o'clock in the day, finishes at 10 p.m. at night.
Exactly.
It's only 2 hours at each venue.
Yeah,
it's for a charity. We always encourage all the neighbours to attend, and for whoever's hosting it to actually speak to the neighbours and explain it to them and give them my number. And we do absolutely everything because it is a community event. We don't want to piss off anyone. Like, that's the complete opposite of what we want to do, whether or not every single person coming to Yardstock gets that vibe and understands it, I mean, that's always a challenge.
I've been to many that, like, apart from the one where the cops turned up, from that time onwards, all good.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's pretty well behaved. It's, I think the one I experienced, there were probably a few too many kind of drinkers and that kind of thing. But you've sort of focused on holding it in Fremantle mostly, where I think it's probably the safest place to do it.
Yeah, and I mean it's almost kind of out of laziness that's occurred, just because it's easier for me to do it there. Partly because I'm at Fremantle, I know more people in the yard.
I would have done the same thing.
But I do. There will be the next one will be back up in the city. It's been a while since we've done it up in the city. So,
but do you think there's two kind of different attitudes towards it?
I think that probably within the neighbours and the community, we've never had any issue with neighbours or police or anything in Fremantle. I think people are a bit more accepting of it down this way. Often, usually in the city, we'll definitely get some angry neighbours. But but by and large, it's still always been good. I mean, it's a hard thing because there's a limitation on space with Yardstock, and it's now 10 years, and so lots of people know about it, and you can only fit a couple hundred people in a backyard. That's just the reality of what it is.
There's a capacity.
And there's this, this balance between being inclusive and not exclusive, because I don't want it to just be a niche thing that, you have to be friends with the right person who know about it. But at the same time, the reality is you can't have 1,000 people in a backyard.
No.
And if we put all the details online, we would have 1,000 people in the backyard. I don't know why it is. I don't know why. I still don't get why it's the most bloody successful thing I've ever done. I think I've always other things. I wish some of my more political projects and bands and shit were as successful. For some reason, people love this thing, and now I got to spend all my time trying to limit how many people come to it. So
you've created a monster.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes. But
but look, man, it's a good monster.
Yeah.
It's ticking boxes for what we don't have access to much at the moment. People are playing gigs.
Yeah.
But I like it because it's an alternative event.
Yeah.
It's unlike the others. And ticks a box for me.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on Indy Media, and maybe discuss how that came to be and how it's sustained all these years.
It's sort of, I think all these things are, for me, I always seem to just kind of go with the flow of the different projects and things that I'm doing, and they're all kind of interwoven and interconnected, because Indy Media was also came about around the same time that I was playing those bands I was talking about earlier. So when I was playing with Alan Boyd in a bunch of bands. And prior to that, there was the website, the Indy Media website. I mean, Indy Media in of itself goes back to Seattle, so it goes back to the huge protests in 1999 when there was the anti-globalization movement, and the WTO was in Seattle, and there's this massive groundswell of progressive sort of social movements that were opposing the WTO. And at that time, we're talking about an era with no social media, no blogs. The internet was a very static interface. This is pre-Web 2.0. This is when you just had web pages that you could visit, and there was no such thing as really like activist media. I mean, there was, but there was no online representation of it. And so Indy Media was really born. It was born out of the Catalyst Collective largely, that, actually a lot of it's got a very close connection to Australia, the Sydney sort of Catalyst Collective. But, it's basically a bunch of sort of anarchists and hackers and people who decided they were so sick of the corporate representation of protests in the media that they wanted to give people an opportunity to basically, as the slogan of Indy Media is, don't hate the media, but become the media. So they really wanted to give people an ability to do that. The Indy Media they built around Seattle was such a huge success. They had over 1 million hits a day on the website, and it was an open publishing website, so some of the first, like Wikipedia, some of the first real sort of tools, revolutionary tools in terms of advancing the internet in that regard. So that's the kind of, where Indy Media came from, was a huge success. And here in Perth, like everything it happens in Perth, we're a bit slower to get off the ground. I think Indy Media in Perth started in about late 2002, 2003, so a few years after Seattle.
Oh, okay.
And then, the website existed for a year or two, and then, it's got the show on RTR, and the radio show as well outlived the website, unfortunately. I mean, I guess, there's a whole huge other conversation about why the website itself globally, Indy Media is no longer a thing, and changing technologies and so forth. It's a massive other conversation of people, activists and so forth, all flocking to social media. But again, that's a much bigger conversation. But yeah, we started the radio show here in 2004.
I'll just add to listeners that we're sitting in RTRFM studio. And I don't know if I've been in this one, but I've definitely been in that one plenty of times.
Yeah.
And even not too long ago, when last year when I did a show in Vic Park, I came in and I like recording the ads and throw on RTRFM a nice chunk of cash from my funding application. So,
I mean, and we're so lucky to have RTR. I mean, I've now been here 18 years. Give or take a little bit of time that I've been out of the state, but it's such an, it's I don't know. I think there's so many things, so many of the bands that I'm in, so many of the projects that I've been involved in just wouldn't exist, or they would exist, but just not to their extent without the support of RTR.
Absolutely.
And I think we're so privileged. We recently had
totally.
Last Quokka did a tour of Plaster of Paris from over east, and a bunch of the people in that band are involved with like PBS and some of the other stations over there, and they're incredible stations. But RTR is just so well resourced and so well organized that it just punches so much above its weight. Like it's compared to even the other community radio in Australia.
Whenever I get a project off the ground and I've got some funding, radio advertising's the thing I pay for, like straight up. Because like we're kind of like cultish kind of event producers, we're alternative thinkers and that kind of thing. And RTRFM is the demographic that I appeal to. So.
And it's in terms of the ethos, it's you're in line, you're dealing with people that share that sort of ethos, and it is. I think like words like community get thrown around so much, and but RTR is actually, you can say without any sort of hesitation that it is community radio.
Yeah, totally.
It's slick, it's professional, but it's still community radio.
And I'm happy with like the package that I get for my events. It's always a smooth process. It's professional.
Yeah.
I come in, do the voiceover and music or whatever. I'm always happy, and the results are really good. I get better results out of radio advertising through RTRFM than anything else.
Yeah, totally.
So it's a good investment.
No, it's a great thing to be a part of, and with Indy Media, I mean, now we've started in 2004, and we basically get pretty much complete autonomy, and that's partly out of a sort of a mutual respect and trust, and the fact that we've been doing it for a while. But there's not many other I can't think of any other radio station where they would basically broadcast the kinds of interviews, the social and political commentary that we get involved in. So I think we're incredibly lucky and privileged to be here.
Absolutely. And, well, I remember when I was screening films across the road at the Velvet Lounge, and I had a show called Free Films, and basically because I was working for Revelation Film Festival at the time as all sorts of things, but one of my jobs was choosing films, and so I'd go through this stack, and of course, like not all the films ever made the festival, so I would screen them for free at the Velvet Lounge. But it's also when I first came across this truth movement screen culture that was kind of starting to happen on the internet. And then Zeitgeist came out and got my attention and the attention of a lot of other people, and kind of just sort of prompted a lot of people to watch this documentary that contained what I think is quite factual information of the origins of things like banking, politics, religion, delving deeper into the narrative and sort of looking further into the truth of how these things came to be and how they've evolved into what we have to put up now. You know? But I got involved in that movement, and then there was I was actually one of the founding sort of members of the Perth Zeitgeist movement.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and we would meet at Pause. Remember Pause in the city?
Yeah.
The People and Animal Welfare Society. And that was run by a Buddhist. Yeah. And they had a cafe, and they sold ecological friendly products and things like that.
Great food, I remember.
Yeah, it was a great little place. They also housed the homeless, and they had a function area at the back, and we got together with this group. We became the Perth Zeitgeist movement. But by that time, Peter Joseph had not only, Zeitgeist had gone viral and he got a lot of attention. These Zeitgeist movements started establishing themselves around the world. Yeah, and so while that's going on, I'm being introduced to all these other sort of independent researcher films that have been uploaded to YouTube. And the production qualities were never that great, but it wasn't really about that. Right. It was about the subject, And so this sort of, subculture, screen culture started emerging. And, I got right into it.
Yeah. It's funny that, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking how there isn't really this stuff doesn't get archived enough. I think there's, because I remember that. You're reminding me. I don't know if you remember Barry from Twat magazine. Do you remember Twat? It was TWOT. He was right into the 9/11 Truth movement and stuff. He was based down in Bunbury. Oh, okay. Around a similar sort of time, but Twat magazine, cool magazine, not film, but cool independent publication. That they had a few issues or something. Unfortunately, sadly, Barry's no longer with us, but.
It's like an independent zine.
It was, I don't know where he got the money from, but it was like slick, nice, shiny covers and so forth. And I think I submitted a bit of poetry to it or something at some point, and he did gigs down there. And he was right, but that's why I was asking. He was definitely a part of the Zeitgeist movement, and he'd sort of been like a 9/11 truther before that. Oh, okay. But anyway, I was just thinking a lot of this stuff gets lost in the sort of the history books of, what's, even in terms of Perth local music or local art or local activism. I mean, there's a few books that I know there's in terms of Radical Fremantle, Radical Perth, a couple of these books that came out of it. It's more focused on the sort of political organisation and parties. But I think a lot of this, what we've been talking about, this kind of the subcultures and the alternative scene for the last sort of 30, 40 years, and even going back even further than that. I mean, I know there's definitely stuff out there. There's probably academic stuff written about it. There's definitely probably some books, but there isn't that intergenerational knowledge passed on, or it isn't archived enough that I see, and I think that as someone, as we're getting older, you see young people sort of coming up into the scene, whether it's music or film or art scene, that aren't aware that there's this culture here, and that's, like I said earlier, I was very lucky to start playing in bands of people that had already been doing it for 10, 20 years. And so I had that instant sort of grounding in the history of it, people like they were involved in the old Freedom Collective and stuff here, people like Mar Bucknell and stuff that were been around forever doing all sorts of shit in the poetry scene and stuff. And I was so privileged to be around those people. But I feel for a lot of the young people coming up, even politically, philosophically, musically, artistically, they don't have that connection to the local history. And because it is, there's a bunch of us that have been doing, and people before us that have been doing stuff for a long time, and you learn a bunch of shit through doing it. Yeah. And I'd love to see that knowledge more, passed on and archived and the histories told, because it's really interesting and crazy shit. And it's important stuff, because it's important. Like, if someone wants to start doing a film screen now, you could run them through the whole bloody thing. You've done enough. You've done more film screenings than anyone else I know. Or similarly, if someone's put on a DOI show, but that it isn't there. And I know there's probably a lot of young people haven't making the same mistakes that you made 20 years ago. I made.
Oh no!
I don't know.
Look, I went to a film screening the other night at the Backlot Cinema, which is a fully 5-star state of the art cinema. And the guy running the event was controlling everything with an Xbox controller.
Right, okay.
And I was sitting there going, motherfucker. Like I bust my ass. But
it's a different thing now, yeah.
No, it's about accessibility and the advancement of technology, And
but knowing the history is still important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's not just about not making the same mistakes, it's like it's knowing that you're a part of something. I think that I'm still a materialist. I still believe in the importance of historical reality, and that totally. You don't just come into the world of nothing. You come into the world with generations and generations of people that have gone before you, and the whole point of being a part of that story, it's like it's important to know that there have been these subcultures in Perth.
Yeah.
That, because like I was saying earlier, there's this sort of idea that Perth's always been this conservative, boring place.
What they call there was a front page, was it Dulltown or something like that?
Dullsville or something.
Dullsville. Yeah. When I remember that came out, and I was like, this is people that don't go out. Or they want you to go to them.
Yeah.
So well, I can do that if you pay me.
Yeah.
But it's not dull. Perth's never been dull.
No.
It's dull people.
Yeah.
Say.
And most of the dull people end up moving to Melbourne. I definitely did for a couple of years and realised there's no point.
I was going to, and then COVID happened, and now I'm still in Perth, so I'm being extra productive.
Yeah.
I'm using my time wisely.
Yeah.
But I like engaging in political discourse. I think it's important, and just I don't delve into these topics as much as I used to. Once upon a time, I went down a lot of rabbit holes. But the thing is, I lost a friend over 20 years. She was friends with me because of conspiracy theories. And then more when COVID happened and all that kind of thing. And she just went right into them, you know. But I think there's being like, a keyboard warrior, and then there's engagement, you know, and you've got to use the internet as a research tool, and be careful, but also go out, meet people, go to things. I through my screenings, I engaged with, by the time I screened Zeitgeist 3, there was 200 people at the gig.
Yeah.
And then we discussed things and things like that, And
that's
you have to have a perspective on,
and talking to people in person is so important. That's where actual human, the political and social realities are born from. Actually engaging with people, not just sitting behind a screen. It's the working of people. I mean, I always, while I'm perhaps not shy to talk about my political leanings and philosophies, my journey to sort of, having my kind of, anarchistic beliefs has always been practical. It's through working with people.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm not like, I didn't go to uni and become an anarchist. I very much organized things, got involved in political activism and campaigns and the music scene. And it's like, I don't think, having absolute hierarchies is an effective or responsible or ethical way to organize. And so, I think, consensus makes sense. I think that when people are empowered to make the decisions that affect them, you get more shit done, and and people are actually included, and when you actually treat people with respect and treat everyone equally, or with equity, that's when things are effective. But it's kind of, I think now a lot of people, they go down these rabbit holes because they're just at home getting conspiratorial, and they suddenly start I've lost a lot of friends to that as well in recent times, that have gone down right into the sort of QAnon sort of space and all that, but they're just individuals isolated, atomized at home on their screens, getting more and more paranoid, making all these sort of links, rather than just go fucking talk to your neighbor or go down the park and talk to someone.
Be proactive. Be proactive.
And,
Also, since the Truth Movement online thing happened, it's also given, everybody else can be a truth seeker as well, And now the internet is flooded with people's opinions on anything and everything.
And that's what people think is politics. They think an opinion is like, your opinion on this is.
But I saw the shift go from research to plagiarism, pretty much. Like anyone can open a YouTube channel and then review someone else's video,
right?
And go, watch me because I'm reviewing other people's videos.
Yeah.
It's like, what the?
And I think there's a deeper problem there, and I think that's my critique of platform capitalism or corporate social media is that it's shifted towards this real hyper individualized thing where people think their opinions matter, and I hate to say, but people's opinions, that's not what shapes politics. Power shapes politics. Like economics, social realities. That's what shapes politics. Not just because you post something on fucking Facebook and tell your a few hundred friends. Like that. It's that's a conversation. That's like, and there's nothing wrong with a conversation, but that's not the same as, like you're saying, material research based evidence or actual engagement in a social reality. Like that's just a fucking opinion. Always
you can open more doors the other way. And I mean, I look for opportunities online all the time. But I also physically go out and experience things. One of the amazing things that came out of the Zeitgeist movement thing for me was eventually. Do you know who Jack Fresco is?
Yeah,
do you
remember futurist. That? Yeah, I remember Jack Fresco. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the Venus Project teamed up with the Zeitgeist movement at one stage, and then they decided to take Jack on a world tour.
The Rosemount, right?
No.
Well, where was it? I remember. Anyway, I'm remembering the event. No, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I was with this Zeitgeist movement from Perth, and the people in the group were like, they had their hearts in the right place, but they were fucking hopeless. And so, I became, the organizer and whatever. But I took it on anyway because that's what I do. So anyway, I started organising this tour, not the whole tour, but just the WA one.
Yeah.
But I had to liaise with the other Zeitgeist movement groups around the country, and they had no organisational skills either, and it was a little bit difficult. But we got there in the end, and we had no budget, and so all I had was early Facebook, and so we did a couple of posters or something like that. But anyway, it was kind of like a group project. And we booked the Octagon. No, not the Octagon. We booked UWA.
Right. I remember it happening.
Murdoch.
Yeah, that's right. I remember it happening. I think I remember even wanting to. I don't know if I ended up interviewing Jack Fresco. I wanted to at the time.
Oh, he came.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
Things happen. It's just,
jeez.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. I hooked you up.
Yep.
And he came in, and you So he was 94 at the time.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And he had his carer, Roxanne Meadows.
Yeah, no, I recall.
So if you don't know who Jack Fresco is, he's passed away now. He passed away a couple of years after we met. But he was an industrial designer, a futurist, and he basically designed an entire way of living sustainably and with harmony.
And there's like geocities and stuff that he builds. Yeah.
Without money also.
Yep.
So the Zeitgeist movement was based on a non-monetary system.
Yep.
and the Venus Project was also of that ilk. But he knew how to design infrastructure sustainably,
right.
And it looked fucking futuristic.
Totally,
as fuck.
yeah, I remember. I mean, I know there's still a fair few sort of futurists around. I don't necessarily agree that, because some of them just say, technology can save us. But there's what I really liked about that. I remember it now. Just people who can put in the work to actually design alternatives. Because I think anyone, coming from, I guess, the anarchistic sort of philosophical lens, one of the main criticisms is people always have this thing of like, well, you don't have an alternative. And I'm like, well, that's not actually true. There are people. I always think of like Michael Parenti. He wrote a book on sort of anarchist economics, a non-monetary system as well. And I always admire people that, because it is one thing to just say, well, I'm opposed to this. It's another thing entirely to start trying to develop models that are alternatives,
Well, he did.
I really respect people like that. I mean, that's why we were talking before about, except for me, my politics is very much based. I try and be very much based in a practical application, in the praxis of like, just doing stuff and trying to experiment with stuff, whether that's through spaces or events, or whatever. Is like try and implement some alternatives, even in the in a sort of microcosm.
Absolutely,
because that's it's so significant. Even if it's just 20 people having a barbecue, if you can do it in a way that's.
Look, I say to people like, there's so much information. You can really go down those rabbit holes and everything, and they're all really interesting. But it depends on your place in the world. So I can't do much about those big picture things, but I can do a lot about smaller picture things.
Totally, yeah.
And one thing that really grinds my gears is just street rubbish. I think we live in a place where we can be better without street rubbish around. And then since the COVID thing happened, there's fucking masks everywhere. And it defeats the purpose of trying to contain...
Right. Yeah, it's
a
absurd.
disease, right?
Yeah.
So I started taking pictures of masks, and I put together a video, and I sent it to the local council with a bit of a. It was a little stern, but you got to push the subject, and wrote to McGowan's office as well. Nothing, But there's nothing stopping me from picking all of that up or getting a few friends.
I mean, when I was living in Melbourne, there was a guy there that used to every month he just totally funded himself a Merry Creek cleanup. And they a bunch of people got together and just cleaned up the creek, and they didn't ask anything for it. They didn't even. I think their only interaction with the council was they contacted them to make sure they could dump the rubbish for free at the local tip without a pass, and that's about it.
Yeah, well,
there's heaps of stuff like that. I mean, I think of there's a group of anarchists in Portland that all they do is fill. Or one of the main things they do other stuff. And one of the main things they do is fill potholes,
right?
Because there's no money to fucking fix the roads,
right.
So they just go around DIY fixing potholes.
Yeah.
And they, organise some sort of events and stuff. But it's just a real practical thing that everyone in the community benefits from. Yeah. And they've just got heaps of respect from it because they're not like, they're just out there practically doing something together. And it's not that expensive to fix a pothole if you just, you've got a bunch of you together to do it. And I love that stuff because that's like demonstrating, well, wait on, we don't need to rely on these institutions. You don't need to rely on the police or government or corporations. While we do live within their reality, we can't pretend they don't exist. You can just go out there and do it. If you need... If your neighbour's fence has fallen down, just go help them fucking fix their fence.
Absolutely.
That's what being a social human being's about. We've been so removed from that. And that's what it's about.
That's the other thing is that people. I live in quite a. I think it's a privileged area. And there's really no excuse for it to be dirty.
Yeah.
So couple of years ago, Christmas morning 2 years ago, I got up and I bought myself a couple of those pickup trigger stick things. That's such a bad description. Anyway, I went up and down the street and filled up a couple of bags of rubbish, and I felt good about it.
Yeah.
And but it's given me an idea to maybe flesh that idea out a little bit more, and that could become a community project.
Yeah.
And it just, or just even prompt people to just walk out into their front curb yards and clean it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like, people are quite happy to clean their yards that they own, but it's Crown land or something, I don't know. But it's about the street, man.
Yeah, it's about breaking down those boundaries of people who think of the space as private or public or whatever, and it's about we all live in this world and we're all together. And it's just, it's a weird thing that we get so alienated by by property, by architecture, by all this stuff.
When I lived in Yokine, I lived in a duplex kind of place, and we shared a front kind of yard section. But my neighbours felt compelled enough to build a wall between, between the to divide the front, and so they would manicure their side, and it was like luscious green blades of lawn grass, and it was manicured and everything. And the other side was mine, and it was el natural. But it prompted me to go, well, you know what? I'm not pressured to mow my lawn every day, just because you do. And so but what happened was I had so much clover in my yards that it attracted all the bees.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I got bees. You got lawn? What's the upside here?
It's a funny thing. The pettiness of neighbours like that. I had one where we were forced to move our chickens 2 meters back from the fence, and it just seemed absurd. But then created this unnecessary 2 meter buffer that my neighbour then proceeded to dump a whole bunch of their shit in and asbestos and stuff. But then ironically, years and years later, I've gotten to know that neighbour quite well. We've never spoken of that, and now I'm building her a carport for free. Yeah. So it's kind of like, well, I don't know, but I think people just grow up with very demarcated traditional role, like this idea that this is my property, this is is all these little spaces, and I think it's like breaking down those spaces is really important. Like breaking down the spaces in terms of like public private property, in terms of even within the kinds of relationships. So this person is just someone I see at the shop, or we're people living on a planet for maybe 80 odd years, and that's about it. All the other shit is just made up. It's just imaginary. Why can't you share space? Why can't you? Why do you have to call a plumber? Why can't you find someone in your community to do it in exchange for doing it? All this stuff can just make it up.
Do you engage with the buy nothing?
I do, yeah. Definitely get involved in the buy nothing group.
That is a really great example of a non-monetary system at work. Yeah. It works.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of been slightly achieved, and through community, And,
it's still small-scale stuff, but it's still I think you're creating spaces for people to experience something different. That's, I think,
you're recycling. You're
Yep.
saving people money.
Yep.
And
you're meeting someone as well. I think it's rather than, because I think my issue with a lot of the consumption stuff isn't just all the waste and all the shit. It's also the way in which it's done. You go into a massive store and you buy a new product is totally dehumanized. It's just and even now you just tap on your phone and there's no interaction. You go around to someone's house and get their, I got someone's sort of secondhand printer the other day. The printer, I haven't even turned it on yet, but I had an hour conversation with the guy, this German guy, and it was worth it just for that. To go into someone's home and we chatted about sort of water sports and kayaking, for an hour.
I agree with all that, but let's talk about the flip side, where the good side of automation for me is paperwork. Especially when you're dealing with governments and you have to apply for whatever, and you've got documents. I had to deal with the immigration department for a whole year with my ex-partner, and they just love paper, but also they don't know how to go from you're subjected to this process of downloading, writing in pen, scanning or photographing, and all this shit, and it's just this really laborious, ridiculous process where I'm quite happy for something like an app to provide all my ID because I have to anyway, but just to make the process quicker than having to, scan this as a PDF, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd get on board with that if like there was less paper being used. But I mean, that was the whole thing when email came out. It was like, oh, we'll save paper, and now we fucking print more paper than ever. Like it's. I mean,
there was no policy put in place to save paper.
Yeah, of course.
It was just a.
There's more paper waste than ever in the. I mean, my issue with the sort of app and stuff is I think I think we're in the beginning of like the fourth industrial revolution in terms of the importance of data, and I don't think you or I or anyone really understands how things have shifted globally. But now big data is the new currency, and I think it's going to be another 20 or 30 years until we realize the significance of the change we're going through.
It's already started,
and
slightly. You got self checkouts now.
Or just data in of itself as a commodity is the most important thing, and all the surveillance and the control and everything that comes around that. Yeah. It's disconcerting, but it's also we just don't know yet. We're just in the midst of it. I think it's like the beginning of the rubber barons or the oil barons. We don't, who knows? Like the fact that someone like Jeff Bezos can make what sort of $6 billion in 3 months, the first 3 months of the pandemic, and just how. That whole way in which the pandemic was exploited by corporations, it's pretty wild. It's a pretty wild time, and I don't think we can even begin to understand what impact it's going to have. What impact it's having.
Yeah. Oh, geez. I mean,
that's a whole separate podcast just on that subject.
But look, at the end of the day, we're both, I consider us sort of, aware people. You have to have an awareness of what's going on in the world, but also in your community. And if you can make little things, small changes can have, large impacts.
Yeah. And large impacts to your life. I mean, that's it. I don't think you or I are going to see a massive social change in our lifetime. But, it feels good to help people, right? It feels good to be a part of community, to do creative projects,
Recently, I don't know if you saw my post, but recently I discovered a meditation center. And I made friends with a monk, who goes by the name of Sister. And so I've been spending time there meditating, and I started fixing her garden. Yep. Yeah, and you put my paving skills to good use, and that kind of thing. And
were you like paving over the garden?
No,
I'm joking. Facetious.
There were trip hazards and all sorts of things, But I got time.
Yeah.
And so that's where I kind of, put my energy into making a change there. And in return, I get philosophical counsel, and it's a meditation center.
Awesome.
It's a cool thing. But there are plenty of opportunities. It really just comes down to how people perceive opportunities, what kind of opportunities. But sometimes people just need to be prompted as well, So
and just stay open to things, that's the whole, I think all the different things that have happened in my life have just been purely by, I'll meet someone, they're doing a thing, that's how I got involved with film, and I met Richie, and he was doing film, and I was like, oh, that's cool, I could do film, and then I'm suddenly helping him out and making music videos, and did some production, and ended up studying film just for the hell of it, because I happened to meet someone that was doing it, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. But that's like anything in life. I think it's sometimes people get sort of stuck in a sort of rut, in a way of just thinking about telling the same story every day, and it's just a matter of like being open, and then these connections happen, and suddenly you're working on a project, or you're working in a monk's garden and getting philosophical counsel, or it's just a matter of being open to those things, and those connections are made, and you're suddenly involved in these really incredibly meaningful projects. I think all my projects have started like that. I never set out and said I'm going to go and do this or that. It's just that I happened to be having a conversation with someone, and they mentioned something, and I thought, oh, that sounds cool. Do you need a hand with that?
Yeah, right.
Well, I like that. I think we're similar in the sense we both have a diversity of interests in that regard, and I'm inversely, I haven't done anything really outside of being involved in a few little film clips in terms of or music video clips in terms of film, and I kind of miss film a bit myself, even though it was never a primary passion of mine. But yeah, I like that. You said before, like the persistency. It's kind of if you enjoy being creative and you enjoy the sort of the freedom that creativity brings, then you just always. Personally, I'm just always on the lookout for different projects in a way. Sometimes overloading myself with too many and then not doing any of them particularly well. But yeah, I like that idea. You sort of jump between things, like you don't have to be. I've got friends that are, I spoke before about Richard Eames, who's just a great filmmaker. We played in bands before, and he stopped playing music just to focus on filmmaking, and that's what he is. And I have friends like that, like they're a thing, and they're he's a great at that thing. And he's not making him out to sound like a one-dimensional person. He's got a whole bunch of diverse interests and even a family and everything now. But he's a filmmaker. I can't just say I'm a bass player or an activist or a radio presenter or something. I'm just a fucking, a chaotic person that's interested in a bunch of different shit.
Yeah, and a sponge.
A sponge.
An absorber. Yeah, same. Yeah. I like all sorts of, and now I've got a pinball thing going on.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been like that. But I know a lot of people, especially like rock and roll scene, where people just play.
That's what they are.
Play gigs, and that's it.
Yep. For me, that's a bit too limiting. I don't know if I could do that.
I agree.
As much as I love it, I love playing music. I couldn't just solely.
Couldn't just be the only thing. No. But that suits some people, but not others. But see, when you. When you have more than a few interests. And, I try and sort of, all the things I love, records, pinball, music, film, videos, whatever, I will use those as, references to come up with ideas and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, there can be all manifestations of a similar thing as well. I mean, that's how I approach it, like whether it's the radio show or the record label or the bands or my academic fucking work that I'm doing now. I still approach it from the same lens, and that's kind of it goes right. My entire life goes back to the sorts of people my parents are. Is that always looking for opportunities to to be free, basically. That's as cheesy as that sounds, but finding spaces in which you can both be free, but also encourage other people to be free in a way, if that makes sense. So
it's also about
just different ways of different. It's just different.
Well, I don't know about free, but aware.
Yeah,
I like raising awareness. Yeah. I think trying to plant little seeds or something, or just it's like my Buddhist friend, or the Buddhists in general don't push their beliefs on anyone.
They don't go door to door, do they?
It's no, exactly.
I wouldn't mind. I wish a couple of Buddhists would
have
a cup of tea with me.
Well, if they're knocking on your door at 7 in the morning, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like they're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not there to introduce you to their family.
No.
No. Well, I want to talk about what you're doing now. Just talk about where you're up to these days and maybe something that's coming up.
Well, you're much the same. I mean, as I was saying, we've got the label that came out of Yardstock. What, to be perfectly honest, was just when Last Quokka were releasing our first records. It's very hard to get signed to any label, especially anything that shares your same sort of ethos. So we're like, well, fuck it, we'll just start our own record label then.
Makes sense.
And so that's gone better than I kind of expected. It's still a very small independent record label, but we've got one of we released an Indonesian act last year, and then we've got a Belgium act that's releasing through us this year. So that's kind of it's like, wow, that's actually a thing, and I don't know, you just keep doing it and not thinking about it too much, but that's exciting, that's cool. And I'm theoretically I guess finishing my PhD, so that's another whole part of my life.
What are you studying?
PhD in media.
That
makes sense.
Great.
So I'm
Where's that?
At Curtin.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm still doing that. And still playing in bands and so forth. And I've gotten recently a whole bunch of us have gotten involved with trying to not take over, but to take on the lease of the old North Fremantle Bowls Club. To
turn I saw that.
Yeah, turn that into a social club, social centre space for music and arts and activism. Who knows whether we'll get it? We put a lot of work into it, but that's a major thing that's coming up.
Okay, cool.
Because that would just provide a lot of opportunity and space and both financial and social and whatever opportunity for a lot of. Totally. I mean, I hope for a lot of projects. Yeah, I'd love to help, at least help start a space that can then support the arts, the music, the sort of, a lot of kind of non-government kind of stuff like organisations like RecLink or RTR or what like those. I'd love to create a hub, because I don't think, before you're talking about Pause before, and there used to be old groovy space, and they used to, I mean, City Farm's still there, but I feel like there isn't a space that's truly run by the people that use it really anywhere in Perth and Fremantle in the way that those spaces were. And I think it'd be really cool to have a space that's genuinely member run and accessible and with really low overhead, so that groups can come and use it for film screenings or workshops or just
activity.
to be activities, gigs, whatever. And I think that's something, again, everything we've talked about over the last while. It's about bringing people together. So that's something I'm really excited about, and I hope it gets off the ground. Excited about it. Also, the thought of it makes me feel fucking exhausted already.
Hey, I want to know why you called your band Last Quokka.
Actually, we had a friend of ours, Paul, a poet, came up with the name, because we're just sitting around the Roseman after a jam and thinking, Paul was an Irish friend, and he said, "Oh, why don't you fucking call it the Last Quokka?" All right.
That's it. Okay.
There wasn't much thought put into it, but the more it's gone on, the more I quite like it. It's got that association with like, what if there was just one Last Quokka? It's kind of a bit despondent, but also a bit ridiculous and colloquial, and ties into that whole Australiana thing of because we really don't take ourselves seriously. It's funny.
I've seen the photos.
We I think sometimes we get sort of pigeonholed because we've got some political songs, and sometimes people try and pigeonhole us as a political punk band. It's like, we've got songs about fish, we don't half our songs are a little bit political. We occasionally say fuck the government,
balance.
A lot of it is just us taking the piss out of ourselves,
you want to be like The Cure, right? The Cure can be like really dark and alternative, and then they can have a number one pop single. Also, we're all kind of getting a bit older in the band as well. So your views, it's not like your views don't change. We still have the same politics and philosophy, but it's more like that changes.
And also you don't when I started playing music and stuff, when you're young, and I'm sure you experience this as well, you get frustrated and angry at the world, and you think the way to solve that is to shout at people, and that's doesn't really do shit. I mean, it does in a way. You might meet other young people that are also frustrated and angry at the world, and you can all shout at people together. And that's, it's definitely positive. And I think the anger and the energy is so important.
I think
you got to make people connect and laugh as well, and get on board with you and be like, well, it's the world's fucked up, but like we can all work together and have fun, and things can be there for a bit more hopeful.
If we all get too comfortable.
There's got to be.
Well, awesome talking to you, mate. And all we can do is keep keeping on, and it sounds like everything's going pretty good for you, man.
It's all
as long as we have these great opportunities,
totally. And I think it's that it comes down to you got to keep moving. Sort of like there's a Japanese author I really like, Murakami. I don't know if you've read any of Murakami's work, and in one of his books, Dance, 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 there's a character in that, this kind of mythical old sheep man, half sheep, half man, who says to the main character at some point towards the end of the book, because the book's called Dance, 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 and he says, look, everything's always happening, the connections are always being made, and the only in your life and in the world. He's like, the only reason the connections stop being made is when you stop. If you get stuck in a rut, whether that's physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, he said, you got to keep moving, you got to keep dancing, you got to keep, I was saying before, you got to just keep being open to things. And as long as you're open to things, I think things happen. And then nothing is ever what you think it's going to be anyway. But that's my approach so far is just to keep looking for opportunities to do cool shit and be involved in things and, you know, help people and support people and whatever. And that's, I don't know. I feel like you're the same in that regard, and that's why we're still here, still doing shit. And I think it's, you know, I think it's a positive way to be, and, you know, just to be open to things and to keep moving and not let yourself get bogged down, you know. And
it's easy to do. But I'll end on this saying that has never left me, and it's a saying that says, there are two types of people in the world: those who serve others and those who serve themselves. And I can safely say that you fall into the serve others.
Thanks, man.
And
cry.
That's all right, man. But so do I.
Yeah.
You know? But I think finding the balance
Yeah.
is where the key is at. Don't give too much of yourself away, and take
Yeah.
a little bit for yourself as well. You know.
Totally.
But
yeah.
Ray Grenfell.
Thanks, Ivan. Really appreciate it.
No
It's lovely
worries.
talking to you, man.
Great
and it's
interview,
lovely,
man.
you know, I'm so happy that you're still doing all those things, and, you know, you're a stand-up fella.
Good on you,
know,
mate. Cheers.
Awesome.
Well, we can only do our best. So
That's
until
it.
next time, goodbye.